what part of blockchain gaming that they are in. And when I sent you the questions, or at least some sort of formal structure to begin with, I asked if you could kind of say what you think the biggest challenge with blockchain gaming is at the moment. Don't take too long on that, but just a quick kind of précis so people can get an idea about what your thoughts are. Lance, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. My name is Lance Baker. I'm the founder of Game Loot Network. We're a competitive casual gaming community, and we believe we've solved through our MVP and beta a couple of huge pain points in the industry. Through that beta, we experienced some viral growth, and we sought out the blockchain as a scaling solution, whereas most people are looking for it as a funding solution. That's a side benefit for us, but a scaling solution and increased gaming experience. I believe the biggest challenge in blockchain gaming is currently the blockchain itself. And that's interesting when you're talking about centralized and decentralized, but I think most of the gaming has to happen off-chain, and then some of the things in terms of user validation and trustless wagering and fraud can be handled on-chain. Some of the important gaming experiences.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cook. I'm the founder of Seeds. Seeds is the easiest way to ask the blockchain for help and receive it as a monetary gift with no strings attached. So it's kind of like a decentralized GoFundMe. The idea is that I don't want creators or people that have needs, all of us, to have to chase money anymore because it's a waste of time. We went through the Boost Bitcoin Accelerator in 2014, Techstars New York in 2015, and then we competed in TechCrunch Disrupt Battlefield in 2016. We're doing an ICO right now if anyone's interested. The biggest challenge, yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Larry said, right? I mean, you can't build on the chain yet because it's not sophisticated enough yet. It's too slow.
Hello, my name is Toni. I'm the CEO and founder of Super Game Chain. And I think the biggest problem with the gaming industry in adopting blockchain, I think is people's mindset. We should clear people's mysterious kind of a mindset about blockchain and whether it's going to be the future or it's going to be a hype or a bubble or something. So if you realize this is the future, and everything we're doing on internet now will be transferred to blockchain sooner or later, you will want to get into this fast. I think technology is as good as it is going. So, and we can do as far as we can, as far as the technology allows us. It's not a problem.
Hi.
Yeah, just.
Hello?
Yeah,
okay.
that's it.
Hey, I'm Koh Kim. I actually advise and invest in ICOs and game startups, specifically for Refurium, which is the game influencer marketing platform that recently ICO'd, and then also a couple of, so one in stealth that I can't say, but it's like gaming infrastructure, and then another one is a game startup, so I'd like to say it's a pretty good track record so far. So, and then I think the biggest kind of limiter to blockchain right now, actually there's a few big blockers, to be honest, because I've written a giant article that I've sent to you about this, but I'm gonna cheat and say two things. One is I would call the user experience. To me, blockchain is a platform. Content makes platforms, is all we know, and I think the biggest problem right now is that most gaming experiences that I see being built on blockchain right now are not actually designed for blockchain per se. I'm just seeing people apply what's working now for centralized databases and just strictly applying them to blockchain, which is not really how you're supposed to actually build an experience implementing some of the special uses. And I think the second biggest thing is accessibility. I still think there's too much friction in the crypto and blockchain space for anyone to use it properly. As we all know, getting someone to install a game, especially in the mobile app store, is almost the most painful thing ever. So you can imagine for someone to onboard getting an actual cryptocurrency, which requires 10x as many steps, is not necessarily the greatest thing for user acquisition. So I think those are the two big things I'd say that are limiters right now.
Hi, I'm Harz. I have a doctorate in educational technology with virtual reality, and I've produced $600 some odd million worth of VR games for DARPA, the RAND Corporation, the Defense Department, NATO, DHS, CIA, NASA, and so on. And my license plate says Avatar. What I think is a missing piece with blockchain is a really ennobling use case. I tell you one I'd love to see. The Defense Department just asked me to do a white paper using the communications part and the DAO part of blockchain to let people exercise with gamification for responding. This is NGOs and the military responding to disaster response, especially in the Pacific Ocean. If we get something like that and get some good press on it where it's about saving lives, I think that would be awesome.
Good. So we've got quite a range of different companies and different kind of aspects on the panel. So a good opportunity for questions. This is really because this is our kind of closing one. I've got lots of questions, but I'm sure you've heard plenty from me over the last 2 days. So do we have any questions from the audience or observations maybe that people have had over the last couple of days, trends? Everyone's just... good man at the back. Do we have any spare microphones? Maybe we don't anymore.
Mike?
I don't think I need one.
Go on then, yeah. Give us your name and who you're working with as well, please.
I'm Michael. I'm with Wastebusters, actually, as a contractor here. But I was really interested in crypto and games and got into Tron, and I got a Tron dog. It was like the most disappointing game I've ever experienced. You know, I went through those 10 steps to like get the Tron and then get the dog. And the game doesn't do anything. You know, you have, like, supposedly you can breed them and they're really activities, but it's just like not developed yet. So it seems like they're jumping the shark or something like that, where you have this a tremendous amount of potential, but then it's like released too soon. And it's like,
Are we too early? Are we talking about this stuff too early? You go on this one.
I mean, I don't think a lot of things. It's not really a game. It's kind of like how I don't think CryptoKitties is a game. It's just a digital Beanie Babies. But I think to one extent, I mean, that's how I was talking about, like, the user experience, right? A lot of people. I mean, this happened actually in the Flash era too. If you think about it, like, people are trying to, when Flash came about and moved to mobile, especially, you see all the Flash games that were really popular in the 90s. When the mobile phone came about, they're like, oh, let's take the Flash game and move it to a mobile device. But that didn't really use the full use of, like, what a mobile device stands for, right? There's touch screen, and so making full use of actually, like, touch controls versus, like, actually I need to hold directions, like, that's not going to apply. That doesn't give a really good experience, especially for the specific platform and the device on hand when it translates to. And the same thing is actually happening in blockchain right now. Everyone's taking what's working now and then submitting these proposals or ICOs for games that, you know, frankly, if to a user, if it was built on blockchain or built on, like, a centralized platform like AWS and, like, all these things, I don't think anyone's going to know the difference. So, I mean, especially for, like, game developers. And so really, it's like, what is that user experience? And as I said, like, I think experimentation is important. I think people need to keep trying but really figure out, like, what is the really good use case in blockchain? Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of, like, back-end development processes that's kind of cool in terms of if you work with tons of third-party vendors and building an accountability for, like, all right, I build in an asset. Did you deliver an asset that's high quality and is bug-free? Then yes, that's probably going to be very useful, right? You probably don't want a human looking at this. But in terms of the actual user experience, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's... I think there's a really cool thing about the payments part. There's tons of people in the world that are unbanked and don't have credit cards or gift cards. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to deliver forms of payment that any of these users could actually, you know, support a game developer with. But I think for the user experience, who knows, right? People talk about digital goods and all this stuff, but Activision, Blizzard, these guys have been playing with digital goods and centralized databases for 20 or 30 years. Why are they not on blockchain? You know, it's like, there's a good reason they're not on blockchain. And I think a lot of people need to think about that more. So, but I think on the AR space, it'd be pretty cool if that's thinking about, like, real estate or some of these more AR, like, capture the flag games. But I think experimentation is required, right? I think just people need to literally design for this in mind and really think about what that user experience will entail. So sorry,
that's why this panel is about the future.
So I guess that's about kind of games per se. Obviously, the games industry is much wider, and I guess kind of Rachel and Lance certainly Lance is coming at it from part of the games industry, but not making games yourself. I mean, what does the blockchain add to a kind of a community loyalty type kind of platform, which is what you guys are?
Absolutely. First of all, the utility uses of a token versus the currency uses. This is a biased opinion, but gaming to me is the perfect use case for the blockchain and for a token as a premium currency to exchange with soft currencies. But we also use it as a rewards mechanism for customer acquisition, a referral program, and as I said previously, it solved some huge issues for us. The gatekeepers, Google, Steam, Apple, the transaction cost with those mechanisms, the customer acquisition. So from a company standpoint, it solves issues. But I personally, unless there's some sort of exponential growth of the blockchain that can happen, that I can't currently envision, I don't see a truly decentralized gaming experience that's going to be any quality whatsoever. I think it can definitely improve some of the huge pain in the industry. It solves not just for the user, but for the game developer itself and the collaboration between gamers and game developers. But a true blockchain game, it's just, I can't imagine a use case that's going to be any kind of quality in the next 5 years at least.
Rachel, I mean, you thinking about the kind of user experience of what you're trying to build. I mean, it's not a game per se, but how is blockchain adding something to that? Could you have done that without the blockchain, or what's the acceleration that blockchain is providing for that kind of mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, in our case, we were kind of gaming adjacent from the beginning because probably many of you remember, I think in 2011 when there was the earthquake in Haiti, Zynga did that thing in Farmville in which they sold like virtual gold and then donated what was raised to rebuild schools in Haiti. So I learned about that, and then I wondered if we could build a tool that would work in all games, in which the important thing about that was that Zynga discovered that this happened to be the most effective way to get non-payers to start spending in games that existed. So it was this encouraging thing about humanity. So we built a tool that I hoped would allow us to deliver that conversion for all types of mobile games. And then eventually we scaled it up so that it works in all types of apps, and we also have a web-based product. But as everyone knows, it's hard to get people to use an SDK. People are sick of seeing SDKs. So in our case, because it's a social good thing, it's helping people, our brand is in front of the end users who use our apps. And I do a lot of Vipassana meditation, if that's familiar to anybody. And at one meditation course recently, I realized we needed to figure out a way to go to the end users. And tokens ended up solving that problem and like 4 other problems that we'd been thinking about. So initially in 2014, when we went through this Bitcoin accelerator, I thought well, we're moving money to places like Kenya. Of course, it's going to make sense to do it on the blockchain at some point. But we never actually did that. We just did a very sort of manual wiring thing in the beginning. With the token component, now you can take a token, redeem it, and ask the system for what you need, and then we just show that through the apps that are using our products. And users contribute, and the apps make more money, and then we just gift that to the person requesting. So in my mind, it's sort of like we're connecting various things. I don't know, it's not squarely one thing. It's something else. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think there's a microphone coming in. If you can say who you are, that would be helpful.
Jim from eMoon. I'd love to hear the panel comment on how the U.S. regulatory and legal environment is holding back blockchain, or if it is.
I actually don't think it is holding back. The fact that there are the only what I call ban hammers that I'm seeing by the U.S. regulatory environments are those that are clear scams, like they totally took the money and ran. So, but I think on the most part, I think it's very good to see that. I mean, if you look at the statements by the SEC chairman, I mean, he talks about how we need to recognize that this is going to be real, and how do we do this in a way that's going to have people feel safe about the securities that they have, and then also ensure that no scams or any negative behavior is being done. I mean, they're taking a more of like, like everyone should assume you should police yourselves and this should be regulated, right? They're not saying, oh, you need permission from us first before you can do like any blockchain development or ICO. And I think that's a very good thing. I mean, a lot of people are assuming, oh, like they're being very like controlling and all that stuff. But I mean, if you compare it to some of these other bodies like China, who I'm pretty sure they're just going to do their own state-owned like exchange, like all the exchanges are shut down. Or if you look at India, that just kind of outright banned cryptocurrency, but so all the trading's happening in paper among channels, right? There's no escrow. Someone can run away with any of your Bitcoin at any moment, and it's just, I mean, but it's this thing, right? It's like, I think having regulation is not necessarily a bad thing. They are recognizing that this is here to stay, and the faster that there is some sort of standards in place and like regulations in place so that people know what to do, then that means that there's a way to move forward, right? Like uncertain regulatory environments means that at any point your business can shut down.
Yeah, speaking to that, I would say that having done our token sale, the most frustrating thing is sort of a consequence of fear about the regulatory environment, which is that centralized platforms like Facebook, Google, Twitter, and so forth have banned ads for all crypto projects, which is just a really immature response that happens when something is new and unknown, and that kind of fucked us over. So, I mean, and we don't have a ton of money. We're not raising $300 million or whatever. So, yeah, that's been the biggest bummer.
Well, I think I'm going to disagree slightly. I think the uncertainty in the environment, especially in the U.S., has created hesitation. And with the SEC taking an unofficial stance or somewhat official stance, depending on what press release you read, of there is no such thing as a utility token. They haven't seen a use case one they see white papers on, but now a functioning one when the tokens are distributed after the sale. Do they actually work on your platform? Can they have numerous utility uses? So I think the uncertainty is certainly holding back some innovation out there or some ideas in funding. And so holding your token sale with the proper regulatory arbitrage, holding token sales outside of the U.S., forming corporations outside it's forcing people outside the U.S. to do their ICOs and raise capital or doing their pre-sale outside the U.S. So the uncertainty, I think, is the biggest thing that could potentially be holding things back right now.
Think Malta, independent country, small member of the EU, and it's very flexible about blockchain.
Ours is a utility token, and it already works within the system, and it's already functioning as intended since we granted the first request for help from a token holder in February. We haven't had any regulatory trouble, knock wood. So, I mean, yeah, it can be done. It's just what you're describing that's for securities, for things that are defined as securities, which just perpetuates the same problems, obviously, that blockchain is trying to stop. So our thing's for the people, so we wanted to take it to the people from the beginning, not to rich investors or whatever.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's like the people that are going to be legit companies or legit teams will have the right legal representation or at least advisors on hand, or they're just going to know. I mean, what's nice about blockchain companies is you don't necessarily have to be headquartered or domiciled in the US either, right? A lot of these teams that I'm seeing and even reviewing, they're all over the world. They're not, I mean, there may be one or two concentrated in place, but I mean, they'll have like, let's say their sales marketing team in like kind of in like San Francisco or New York, but then all their dev team is in like Belgrade, or they'll have like another team in like Vietnam, because in the end, you're building a network. It's just like a game company. You're building to a global audience. And so it's actually up to your benefit to be developing and building a company that can function on a distributed team framework, and which is essentially what blockchain is, right? You're going on a decentralized organization. So But I think like the companies that are legit will know what they need to do. I mean, it's not like one country is better than the other, to be honest. I think even I look at Switzerland and some of these other places, like you're trading off something by trying to not be in certain countries in terms of what protections you'll have in place for on your companies and all that stuff. And I think each company will, figure that out accordingly, right? And so
I think regulations is good. It protects investors. However, uncertainties and unstructured, like a legal current situation, is not good, because it raises the threshold for developers to actually embrace this new technology.
Anyone else? Okay, well, the last question I kind of fired you guys over, I'm going to cut it down a little bit, but we are supposed to talk about the future of blockchain and use in gaming. So I guess most of us agree there is a positive future. I guess a little bit of the uncertainty is how quickly it will come. So I'll moderate my question I asked you over email. How do you expect blockchain gaming to develop over the next 12 months and then over the next 10 years? So you have an extreme runway to judge. I'll cut out the 5 years. So Lance, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah,
Where do you think that's developing?
I think the gaming space is extremely ripe to be disrupted. And I think if people deploy the blockchain correctly, I mean, I think it could put a real, Google and Apple, I have a real passion for what they're doing to the gaming community, not doing what they're doing for it. And I think this, if deployed correctly, it can really disrupt the gatekeepers out there in the space. The industry as a whole is growing, but the independent developer community is absolutely suffering. They cannot survive in the current environment. And so being able to create a platform or a distribution platform separate from the big gatekeepers by creating a better user experience, by creating an innovative customer acquisition model, and creating additional more effective ways for developers to monetize their projects, the blockchain is absolutely perfect for that.
That's a huge gap, man. I don't know. I mean, 2018 is going to be an interesting year, as I'm sure many or most of you know, in the Ethereum world, because they're going to address many of the scaling issues, or they're going to try to. So that'll be cool to see what happens after that. Beyond that, I like sometimes bringing up this guy Sam Shalaki, who I saw give a talk at the Bitcoin accelerator we went through that I mentioned years ago. Talked about how, like, in the beginning of the early days of the internet, people were like, well, why would we connect my computer to yours? Am I going to like do word processing on your device? Which just illustrates that we can't obviously see all of the shit that's going to end up happening because of this network. So I don't know. I think we're alive at a really, really fascinating time, which is all I have to say about that.
Okay, 11 years ago tomorrow, so that's the May 16th, 2007, I just joined a company called RockQ. And we were the early developers for Facebook. Facebook was gonna open its open platform on May 20th. So I started building applications for Facebook with the very early developers at the time. And I had to adopt a new language that I've never used before. And I have to build an application in 4 days and launch it on Facebook on the first day. And I did it, so it's very exciting. So from then on, I experienced the emergence or the rise of Facebook games or social games, and then mobile games, VR, AR games. And now, I mean, I was developers, building games or building applications for all those platforms. But now, I would like to, I was a developer, but I've experienced a lot of issues with the platforms that actually give the developers a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of problems and headaches, or sometimes even obstacles for the developers. So now I'm building a platform and the base infrastructure because I came from this long way and I know what the developers need, and I'm gonna, I think blockchain will, first of all, the technology itself will solve a lot of issues that the current internet has. And then the second of all, I'm going to build this infrastructure and the platform from what I've experienced before. And I think this infrastructure will enable a lot of developers to thrive on blockchain. And as for like the whole blockchain games, sorry, a little bit, straight away a little bit. So blockchain gaming, I think having experienced, social gaming ups and downs, and then mobile gaming thriving, and then like VR game very, very shortly, very booming, and then very quickly going down. So it's very, very obviously to see that games are going in a trend on each different new technology and each different platforms, from a simplicity kind of a format to a format in terms of gameplay and the graphics, etc. From simple to complex, and from like unified one thread of gameplay to multiple themed in one kind of a gameplay. And I think, so blockchain will experience this as well. Just like the question that was asked just now, like CryptoKitties and a lot of blockchain games, you can't even call it a game in the strictest sense. However, this is the beginning. It's just an infant. It will grow to be a baby and a kid and then grown up. And eventually, blockchain can provide very good, I think, much more like high quality and premium, not premium, but high quality and more complicated games for the world. Because in the future, it will not be one person to build a game. It will be the whole community building this game together. So every talent, every people, all the talent, we're going to build this gaming world together. It's gonna be much better than whatever one person or one company can build.
Man, I'm gonna like sound really negative Nancy. So I think in the next 12 months we're gonna see a lot of blood, a lot of failed companies, and I think partially it's because there's just a lot of structural things that are not in place that kind of needs to settle. I can't count how many different blockchain platforms there are, plus against like uncertain regulatory environment, plus accessibility issues that are across the board. I mean, a lot of the disruptions that happen, especially in the gaming industry, has to do with distribution. Every single technology that has fundamentally grew the gaming industry 10x has always been about distribution. The internet, social Facebook gaming, mobile phone, those are all like distribution disruptors. Now, like I think blockchain is a very interesting potential distribution platform disruptor, but there's a couple things, actually quite a few things that need to happen. Things I'm looking for, I mean, assuming that infrastructure scaling is going to solve itself, I'm looking for tools. There's too many blockchain platforms that are out there. I'm actually really interested in looking at cross-chain development tools that actually enable game developers. Kind of like what is going to be the next Unity, or like, you know, like the next Unity or Unreal Engine that is going to be for blockchain games, or maybe part of the games services that are going to operate in blockchain. Be really interested in seeing a lot of that stuff, especially as people are trying to try a lot of different content. I think we'll see a lot of interesting things being done on how people handle identity. Blockchain is great for transferring secure information and anything surrounding identity security. So we talk about payments fraud, being able to like exchange payment for certain goods. How do people think about ownership of, like, let's say a user's game identity, like within the game? Do we allow them to use that as a real estate asset that can be transferred to like another game? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because a lot of the answers point to not being good for game developers right now as a business. So, but could there be potential for but in terms of payments and enabling a good 3-4 billion people to be able to pay for an in-game app item, I think that's very exciting, and I think that's what's going to be very interesting, because it's my experience being on, you know, building out Play's business for a good 3 years. As soon as we basically made a new form of payment go live, we saw a gigantic increase in revenue for that market. And ultimately, there's all these players out there that want to pay for a special item in game, and they're just not able to do so because they don't have the credit card, or they don't have the direct carrier billing, or they don't have the gift card enabled in that market. So I think those are some of the biggest things that we're going to see, at least in my mind, for the next 5 years, is like, I think, will there be a new distribution platform? I highly doubt Facebook and Google will be removed from their kind of like, they're going to still be kings. They each have their own blockchain R&D groups for a very long time. I mean, Facebook just announced it and sent one of their basically brilliant product person over to head up that group. Google had it for a very long time, right? And so I don't think that like we're going to see, I don't think Facebook and Google will go anywhere. I think all of these large companies all have blockchain like groups of their own, and they're definitely thinking about this and how it applies to their business. But on the flip side, I think there's definitely a huge opportunity when looking at markets that are generally don't have the, let's say, the dominance that's shown by like the Facebook, Google. I mean, in PC gaming, no one owns discovery space in the PC gaming space. That's why I'm really excited about Referium. So in terms of how you work with streamers, how do you work with user discovery? So I think a lot of those areas where enabling people to discover and then ultimately get your game distribution is going to be really interesting. Those are the areas that I'm more interested in versus, let's say, the actual game experience.
Yeah. I think of 5 areas where blockchain capabilities like identity and security and DAOs can really make a value add. One is identity of art pieces. There's thousands of Picassos, pricey Picassos and Salvador Dali's that are fakes. Years ago, Joe Barbera of Hanna-Barbera used to put one of his hairs onto animation cells to identify it with his DNA. So CryptoKitties and blockchain has solved that, so we don't have to sacrifice our hair. There's a great app. Another one, number 2, collect commissions on external items. So for instance, Second Life charges 5% commission on something that when you trade or bring in something from another world. Those are going to be small amounts, micropayments. Blockchain is great for micropayments, and that can enable a lot of gaming communities and properties in those, including, by the way, not just items like swords, but also movements, animations, even emotions now with the new wearables. 3, support LBE. Lots of people in Hollywood dumping money into location-based entertainment, including Spielberg and Disney. When Gome Group, for instance, is building out 2,000 LBE centers for virtual reality gaming experiences in 400 cities in China. When you start playing with gamers in other places and you start buying things in the game, you're going to want the security that blockchain can give you. 4, new technology. There's a bunch of new technology coming up for the internet that blockchain, they've been testing it, including DARPA, and blockchain is uniquely positioned to work with it. One is GPS. Do you guys know that this year GPS is going to be improved from 15 to 20 feet resolution to 10 inches resolution? That means you can track not only bodies but parts of bodies, and when you're doing that, where people are located, again, you want security. Another one is IoT, the Internet of Things. If you're tracking billions of things around the world, objects, game pieces, you want a blockchain to keep that secure. Another one is Internet Protocol version 6, 128-bit new internet that's replacing the old one. It allows a URL, a website for essentially every object on Earth. So you can have anything as a game piece with its own website. And lastly, IPFS, the interplanetary file system, is going to, within soon, replace HTTPS and reduce the bandwidth that you need for blockchain and speed up blockchain gaming. And then lastly, forming communities where we were talking about charities and whatnot. They recently looked at 50 charities in the U.S. and found that 50 of them were less than 5% of the money spent on them was getting to the end user. So people that donate want to have that kind of visibility that they can only get with blockchain. They can form a community like a DAO on this end and go, hey, we want to see this and this with our money. And then at the other end, there can be a bunch of farmers in Africa who go, hey, look, with that money, we bought a water purification truck, and see, it works, it's real, the money went where you wanted it to, and we're going to name the truck after you. So those are some examples that of future applications where the value add is critical. Several of them can only be done with blockchain.
Good. Thank you very much, panel.